Welcome to Transform and Thrive. I'm your host, Jessalin Lamb, and this is a series all about uncovering the stories of transformation, resilience, and growth that inspire us to embrace change and thrive in our lives. In each episode, we sit down with trailblazers who have turned challenges into opportunities and sharing their pivotal lessons, mindset shifts that have led to their transformation. Today's guest is Melissa Healy, who is a champion of creativity, culture, and connection, and a former award winning creative director turned impact driven leader. She believes that who we are is intrinsic to what we make. As an SVP on the Impact and Equity team, Melissa is on a mission to embed inclusion into the heart of business and creative transformation, from co-founding the employee-led collective Create Greater Than to building the multicultural intelligence practice and launching the award-winning Inclusivity Product Council. Her work centers on making equity actionable and culture a catalyst. A mother, a mentor, and unapologetic believer in people, Melissa gets her energy from supporting others and creating space where everyone can flourish. And she proudly carries the ethos of people are magic. And
Mhm.
she's here to help more of that magic thrive. So, for everyone listening, whether you're navigating a challenge or seeking motivation to take that next step, you'll find this so much inspiration today.
I
Welcome,
hope.
Melissa. They will, for
You.
sure. Welcome. So happy to have you here
Thank
today.
thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
We'll start with transformation. So, can you share a significant challenge or turning point in your life that became a catalyst for transformation?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I have a lot, and I'm a visual thinker. So when I was thinking about this question, um, and I have a Pixel phone, so I don't know if Apple phones OS do this, but when I want to go edit a video, there will be like points that the editor shows of like, this might be a good still or this might be a good still. And so to me, these like points of transformation kind of look like that, right? Where
Mm,
it's like you're going through your life and there's like, oh, that was a point of transformation. Oh, that was a point. Oh, that was a point.
yeah.
So I have quite a few. I think, you know, um, so I'll highlight like overall just a few that I think are really
Hmm.
important to like my story and like what make
Yeah.
me me. I think one, I was an athlete growing up. I was really into field hockey. I was a goalie. I, played on a Division 1 team. I played in another country. It was really something that was like central to who I was at the time.
Hmm.
And I think being on a team in that high caliber, high level environment, I think is absolutely a point of transformation because learning how to be with different people
Hmm.
and, quite literally winning and like win and lose situations, I think is just like skills that and again, this started in earnest when I was in high school. So I didn't know the lessons I was
Right.
learning when I was 16, 17. But I think back to that as just like some real pivotal foundational
Mm,
skills that
yeah.
for sure, like when I think about transformation, like just transformed the way I operate as an adult now. So that's a high level version of one. Um, uh, Field hockey, at least at the time, was not a revenue driving sport. So in the
Hmm.
school that I played for in college, we had to work for the men's teams. And that was my first foray into equity. Again, I was,
Hmm.
in my late teens, early 20s. That word was not part of my vocabulary. I
Right.
didn't understand it then. But when I think about the things that we were trying to show and do as female athletes who had something to give, and that, um, just that training I got in
Yeah.
advocacy, like again, not knowing that that's what I was doing at that time. So that's a transformational. And I tell that those very quick stories just to say that there's a lot of times I think when you look back on your life and you think, oh, I'm a different person now. And like I've had quite a few moments of reflection where I'm like, I'm not really that different. Like the groundwork was
Mm.
laid all along the way. I just didn't always know it.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest transformation, and this is kind of cliche, but also very true for me, was becoming a parent and becoming
Mm.
a mother.
Yeah.
I there I mean, for all of the reasons, you just, suddenly being in charge of another person, and you're like, wait, really? Should I be in charge of a whole other person? Like, who? How did this happen? But in my particular case, my daughter is disabled, and we use is disabled language. That's just what our family does. I know that's not what everyone does, but that's what our family does. And I think that is not something that you are prepared for as a
Mhm.
parent. It's not something that's spoken about. I think maybe a little bit more now. But my daughter's in her late teens, so this was over a decade ago. So disability was not something that was in culture. It was not something that was talked about. It's not something that your doctor talks about. And I think I kind of chose this moment to talk to you about transformation because it is my why for what I do, what I do.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
it is, right? When I trace back why I wanted to pivot from being a creative director and why I want to focus on client impact is because I live daily with the data in the form of a human that says when you support people, when you give people what they need, when you meet people where they are, and you communicate with them in the way that they need to be communicated with, and find ways to be a support and an advocate, that
Mhm.
they thrive. Um,
Right.
and she is a full person, she is a deserving person, and I don't know that I would be able to advocate in the way that I advocate. It has become like who I am.
Mhm.
And I think that I, that has like when think about like what's transformational.
Right.
Um, and again, not that it changed me, but I think it like rearranged some of those pieces of my identity and said, this is a space for you. This is a place where you can lend and use your voice um, and be in support of people
Mhm.
um, and in my role now it's people and product,
Yeah.
right, and how those two things work together because they do, right. it's
Mhm.
it's it's part they're part and parcel of each other, which is why you said the quote from me, who we are is intrinsic to what we make. Like I just believe that with my whole body. You cannot separate what you do, what you make with who you are. I just don't believe that. And so I think we can do good things. We can put good things into the world, and we can get good things out of that. So
Well, I will
that was
add
a
to that also.
long-winded ended to your question.
No, no, I love it because, but also I know you said like it hasn't changed you. I think it's changed, transformed the way you think in such a positive way because even as you say people are magic, not only are you helping your daughter, you're also leading by example and creating a better world for everyone. So being open to talk about it and what works. I mean, that also leads to my next question because I'm sure, and I can't even imagine all the challenges that you had to overcome. So even during this time, like what was the biggest challenge that you faced and like how did you overcome it? And I'm
Yeah.
sure there were many, so feel free to pick like a few of it. few that you want to highlight.
Yeah, and there was certainly there's personal challenges, and then there's like how does that manifest in
Mm-hmm.
in the work environment. I think I will say a couple of things. I have been really so lucky that my work life and work people have been a support and friends and place for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the challenge was not that I had a child that was disabled, then I had to go to work, right? And that is a very real challenge for some
Mm-hmm.
people. That was
Yeah.
not the challenge. I think um and so I think the one that I will talk about, because I think this is very like pertinent to my job and my approach, is how do you balance advocacy with um, that person or that group or that community's sort of sense of self too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I, as a mom who like wants to like bust down doors right, for my kid,
Absolutely.
and and parents will get like it's like violent but not like truly violent.
You'll do
Like,
anything. Yeah. Yeah.
right, like thoughts about like I will die for my child, right?
Right.
um
Mm-hmm.
how do I balance wanting to get her what I think she deserves with, especially as as she's getting older, her as a person and what she needs and what
Mm-hmm.
she actually needs versus what I think her as her mother needs, right?
Yeah.
Um and that's honestly a challenge for any parent, right? That like balance between like, I'm your mom, listen to me, versus like you need to be an independent, capable, autonomous. We actually use the word autonomy, not independence,
Mm.
because independence is a normalized word. It's what other people think should be, versus autonomy is what is really right for you. So I think, and even just getting to that point of understanding the importance of autonomy and again, her kind of self-determination, um,
Mm-hmm.
I think was and continues to be a challenge, right? It's something that um, you never stop learning, and you never stop trying to get even more nuance. So again, I think that challenge is how do you be an advocate that is truly centered in support, um, versus judgment or
Mm-hmm.
righteousness, or even like all the good intentions in the world, right? And sometimes all the
Right.
good intentions in the world is not what somebody needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, again, when I think about, and there are many, I have like probably like 45,000 answers to this question, but I wanted to, that is how I approach my job. And what is that balance between being an advocate, being a person who has an opinion,
Yeah.
and is used to you know speaking out. How do I make sure that um, I'm not kind of overshadowing?
Mm. Like having that good balance. Yeah.
Yeah, having
And
that.
I like what you were saying about instead of independence of it being about autonomy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was something that was shared with me, and I was really, really thankful for that lesson. Um, and I was like,
Well,
yeah, this is
yeah, that one is really, it stands out to me. And it makes me think of the next question, which happens a lot where we have to shift our mind in terms of reframing how we're thinking about something. So I would be curious to ask you what mindset shifts or realizations help you move forward and grow, like in addition to some of the ones you've already shared.
yeah. I think I was very fortunate a long time ago, to be introduced to something called conscious leadership.
Hmm.
Um, and um, truthfully, I kind of rolled my eyes in the beginning because I was like, what are these words? Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean conscious leadership? Like, I'm a conscious person. I get this, right? And I am so glad that I was wrong. It's something I continue to practice. I work with a coach who now he has his own coaching business, but he was part of the Conscious Leadership Group. And I still practice it monthly. And I think, one of the pillars of conscious leadership, one is like the word conscious, being aware, right? But really
Hmm.
having a strong sense of self, and then um, working to think through what are you truly responsible for versus what are you at the effect of.
Mm.
And um, on my very best day, I am not at the effect of. And sometimes that lasts for a minute, sometimes that lasts for
Yeah.
an hour,
That's human.
sometimes that could be in a whole day, right? Again, this
Yeah.
is like continual practice, but I think
Hmm.
it's really helpful for me to think about being at the effect of something versus the language is being in creator mode,
Yeah.
right? And when you're in creator mode, you're open, right? And again, to put that sort of in language of workplace, when you're curious, you are learning, you are
Hmm.
working with people, you are getting to a place. And when you're at the effect of, you're closed, right?
Yeah.
There's only one right way. This is the thing. Um, and I think that is the constant kind of narrative in my brain. And sometimes I'm very good at shifting that behavior. Other times I'm not. Other times I'm just aware. I'm like, in my head, I'll be like, dude, you are so below the line right now, which is when you are at the effect of something, the phrase is you're below the line.
Mm.
So sometimes the win is that just I can recognize it.
Right. Which that's a huge step to
Yeah,
like
I can
self-awareness.
recognize it.
Yeah.
I think the other part that has really stuck with me, and I have like this practice is now. I'm not like a practitioner. I don't like go by the rule book or any of that. But so these are just the things that kind of have stuck with me. This idea of having a whole body yes,
Mm.
which is like you don't say yes to something unless you're committed to it, unless you're going to follow through, unless, and for me, I add in like, again, is this truly something, one, that I can give to?
Yeah.
Do I have something to add? Or to go back to what I was talking before, is it just me talking? Um, and and am I committed to it? Because if I am committed to it, that's it, right? And that
Hmm.
goes back again to being an athlete and learning very early on. Again, at least for me, you don't have to be an athlete to learn this lesson, but
Yeah.
when you when you're part of a team, you're responsible. You're responsible for the outcome, and you're responsible for the outcome that other people have, right?
Hmm.
And and if you're not committed to something, then at some point, yes, you're letting yourself down, but you're also letting other people down, right? And
Right.
um, I would never, it would kill me if someone said like you let me down. That would kill me.
Hmm.
Or like you didn't show up, right?
Yeah.
So you said you were and you didn't, right? So to me, this idea of whole body yes is that's easier to put in practice.
Well, and I like that because then you're really intentional about it too. And you're really asking yourself before you step into it of how you want to show up and how you want to move forward.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that also ties back to the like learning when your advocacy is like overpowering and overwhelming, right? Because I can say a whole
Mhm.
body yes, and a whole body yes might just be, like literally going to a meeting and being there and presence. It doesn't, whole body yes doesn't always mean you're in charge, you're in front,
Right.
right? And so I think that's been a good, again, continual lesson.
Right. An ongoing practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of ongoing practice, like growth mindset, that also is ongoing in terms of how we cultivate it. A big part of it is also embracing failures and being able to learn from mistakes. So I did want to touch upon learning lessons or the ones that you wanted to highlight for moments of failures that you may have had along the way, and how did you learn from them?
Yeah. Um, I the word failure for me is much like the word regret, where I'm just like, I don't have those.
Hmm.
Because to me, it's like if I didn't have those moments, I wouldn't like where I would be now would be very different.
Yeah.
Um, so I probably don't categorize them in my own brain as failures, but I think um, again, language and communication,
Yeah.
um, it's a lot of learning, right? And um, I I don't have specific examples. I was thinking about this question last night and I'm like, I don't have good examples, but I know like I haven't always communicated well. I haven't always said the right thing the right way.
Hmm.
I used the word righteousness before, and I think, again, there have been times where my passion came through as righteousness, not as support or advocacy or like just plain passion, right? And so I think that has been, and again, I've been very lucky that in those moments I have had people that have cared enough about me to be like, maybe you shouldn't have done that that way, right?
Right.
And or said it, or like, or I went and after you XYZ, I did XYZ, and it's like, oh, okay, in reflection, I can see that what I thought was a passionate response, again, all good intentions, right?
Hmm.
Um, maybe didn't land the way I had wanted it to land. So I think um, the the I don't want to say failure, but I'll say failure since that was your question. I think the failure of maybe language and also um, not always knowing myself, right? Like right now, I talk a lot to brands and teams about identity and understanding identity. And
Hmm.
I always say to people, like, I don't ask anything of you that I haven't asked of myself. And
Hmm.
um, understanding who I am is
Yeah.
and continue to be, and like really understanding my identity has been very important to being able to step into a role that is about impact, that is about equity, because um, I didn't always have that privilege of understanding why I did what I did, where I mean, I know the basics of where I came from and my ancestry and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
but I'm talking more about that, those kind of like systemic things that make you who you are, and some of those things. I think it's really important to understand. So, I think if there are any failures, that would be it.
Okay, so I'll move on to talking about community because you even mentioned a lot from what you're saying about people supporting you. I would love to hear like who or what supported you during times of transformation.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, I'm lucky because again, I feel like I've had really good I've had really good support. Um, and it's come from so many different places. Like part and parcel of family, 100%. Um, my husband has been a good cheerleader. But again, from the workplace perspective, I think um, I have had some very good teammates who um, who just have kind of let me, I'm going to say, do my thing, but not in a way that they weren't involved. I think they
Mhm.
recognized and sometimes even before myself, recognized what I could do and pushed me into those places. I think about, um, you know, someone that I really, really value is Renetta McCann, and, had the pleasure of having her as, my boss, a mentor, someone who just is so generous with her knowledge, and there's never been a moment where I questioned support, and I think she was one of the people when I was a creative director and really had this thought of like the idea of community and supporting people and understanding culture and like that connection between all this culture stuff that we were doing in the office at the time, and work and all that. This was in 2018, 2019. um,
Mm.
that's actually what's lighting me up. um, you know yeah, I like being a creative director, and but I kind of felt like I had done all the things, and what I liked about being a creative director was a team and supporting the team and then supporting clients. And and when this, what I'll just call culture work for kind of a catch-all umbrella term, kind of came into my purview, I was like, wait, this is really important.
Mhm.
And I went to Renetta, and she was one of the people that I talked with, and I said, like, can I do this? Right? Like, I kind of
Yeah.
want to, and I think I can do it, but can I do it? And she was really instrumental in helping me, um, kind of see the role that I could play, and um, how being a creative director actually plays very well into what I'm doing
Mhm.
now, right? Because I think in the beginning, and people say this to me now all the time, and now I have to say no, but people are always like, "Oh, that's so different," and it's not really. It's not really so different from being a creative director, but she was one of the first people to help me kind of parse through what that meant and how that could look, and truly the gift at that time. And she can, I mean, there's so many things I've learned from her throughout the years, but the gift at that time that she gave me was um, I believe that you can do this, right?
Mhm.
And I really needed that because I really
Yeah.
wanted it. I really wanted to pivot my role. I really wanted to have more of an impact, and really think through culture and what that meant and what that could look like, and how, like, the mechanics of it all, but I wasn't sure if I
Mhm.
could, right? And she knew that I needed that, like, yeah, you can do this. And that was such a valuable gift at the time. And it's a lesson that I have tried to internalize and then be able to kind of pass that on. That idea of when a person is kind of like, oh, I'm not sure,
Right.
being the like, nope, go,
Yeah.
you can do it.
Yeah, and that's great that she helped champion you. I mean, also big advocate of her. She's just an amazing human. And even just hearing your story now, it makes me think of how even when it comes to growth and fixed mindset, we're not always one or the other. There's moments where we might doubt ourselves or
Mhm.
question things, and that's when the fixed mindset might come into play. And to even have people in your community to be like, no, this like you got this, we'll figure it out, and help you manifest that to into reality is huge, which is why I like asking the question about community because it's people around us who are helping support us during those critical moments too of transformation.
Right, and just breaking down that like wall that is the fixed mindset,
Hmm.
right? That says
Yeah.
like either I can't, or for me it was like, do I? Right? Like can
Right.
like
Or I
right?
don't know what it looks like or like, yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think growth mindset is also about stretching, and
Hmm.
it's about ambiguity.
Right. Right.
I'm not a linear thinker. So for me, growth mindset would not be plots pointed in a straight line.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I think, Renetta is, to your point, a good example of someone who kind of helped me. Like, I was in, going like this, but I got caught in a spiral, and she kind of helped me get out of that. So,
Right. Well, also, I wanted to go into because when we're going through times of transformation or even growth, we need to make sure we have habits to help support us to thrive. So, what are some habits or like practical steps that help you thrive during transformation?
oh my God, I'm the worst. I have no. Nobody should listen to this part of the conversation.
I don't believe that.
Uh, um, I don't have like the good answer to this question. I truly, I'm terrible. Like I don't journal. I don't meditate. Those things are not for me. I cannot do them. They just don't work for me. Um, uh, I don't read a lot of how-to books or that type of stuff. So I feel like those are all the things that everyone mentions, and I do not have that answer. Two things. I think my outlet, which works very well in the warmer months, maybe not so well in the colder months, is gardening. Um,
Mm.
that is how I like very literally reconnect and very literally ground myself. Like there are some times where I am barefoot, which sometimes isn't super safe, but um, so um, that's a practice more so than a habit because it's not something I can do every day. Um, I am a very big daydreamer.
Mm.
Um, and it always like I very specifically remember being a little kid, maybe like kindergarten or first grade, and this is back in the day when report cards were done by hand, um,
Uh-huh.
back in the dinosaur era, as my 12-year-old likes to remind me. um, and I remember a report card where the teacher wrote like Melissa is a daydreamer, um and that was like meant as like a criticism, a bad thing.
Oh.
And I remember my mom reading it out loud, and I remember in my head thinking, but why is that bad?
Right.
um and so I didn't pay attention to it, obviously, but
Yeah.
but but daydreaming for sure. And sometimes it's, productive daydreaming, and I think that it can be very helpful, from like a vision and trying to think things
Hmm.
through. And I can usually see a path, and I think that's from daydreaming. Sometimes it's, a little bit a little bit
Yeah.
distancing myself from life, so maybe not so productive, but I think I do that. And then honestly, like from what I was talking about before with conscious leadership, and then just the idea of, if you really truly want to think of like habits, I think, I um, the habit of whole body yes, and the habit of,
Hmm.
again, above the line, below the line. Above the line
Yeah.
is when you're in creative mode, and below the line is when you're at the effective. I, that's like from.
Well, those are great answers in terms of thriving because thriving doesn't look the same for everyone. I mean, even the gardening, I've seen the beautiful pictures on your Instagram, and I don't have any green thumb. These are fake green plants over here behind me. So, I mean, even doing that, I think that's amazing because it also is you're like growing your own garden and even in like a literal sense in your own life.
Yeah,
And then the fact that you're also the daydreaming part, I think is amazing because that's you working your creative brain to like think differently or pulling yourself out of the reality of like, okay, what do I want to change and make
yeah,
different? And then even the conscious leadership, I need to look that up more to learn more about that because it sounds amazing in terms of just how you're showing up as a leader.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm thankful for conscious leadership, and I've been doing it for years. Might even be 10 years now.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. It was actually part of a culture of a startup that I worked at. We all did it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, the next one I want to ask is how you celebrate or acknowledge your growth and success.
I'm also terrible at that. So if you're listening, kids, this is what not to do. I am not very good at celebrating. I am great at celebrating you.
Others, yeah.
Yes. I am top notch other people's celebrator. Uh, I would maybe give myself a solid C in celebrating myself. That's an uncomfortable place for me to be.
Mm,
Um, and that has manifested itself in many ways, even, being a creative director and, you know, uh, not thinking that I could put work into like awards categories, right? Because you're just like, oh, but that just feels really uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
Um, so I don't have a good answer for that. I'm not very good. I love the idea of celebrating people at the time. I had when I was a creative director, I had a client, she was a CMO. She was CMO of a technology company. She was like the lone woman in a sea of men. And one of her lessons was like celebrate at the moment. Don't wait, right? So if something good happens, you have to say that something good happened right away. You don't wait because then you
Yeah.
lost the opportunity. And for her, it was because she was a CMO in a like engineering technology company. And so most of her organization didn't understand what marketing was. So she needed to show those celebrations. So she had this like very practical application of it, but it's a lesson that has stuck with me forever. So, um, you know, I do always try to make sure when somebody does something, it's celebrated at that
In the
moment.
moment.
Yeah. And like, I think you're really good at that too, right? There's a lot of like in a Teams chat, you might be like,
Hmm.
oh, this person did this, right? And like that little acknowledgement, I think is really important. So that's something that I've tried to take away. I just don't do a good job of applying it to myself.
Yeah, no, and that's why I like asking it because I also like to hear how other people do it. And I've had a coach remind me of when it comes to habits, there's this ABC way of thinking about it where it's you're anchoring it into a new routine or existing routine, actually changing the behavior, and then the C is celebrating.
Mm,
So that because that helps rewire your brain to be like, oh, this is good. I want more of
right.
this.
Yeah.
And
Pavlov's
then
dog.
right, right. And then like simple ways that I've done it because sometimes it's like, okay, how do we do this in real time? Like one way, like a year ago when I started working with my fitness trainer, I was like, okay, the change is like being able to go to the gym and being able to work out and doing workouts I've never done before for strength training. And the way I've celebrated, I remember she told me I have to take a selfie every time I worked out to as evidence. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and so like, but then I was like, I'm gonna just go with this. And then I have this whole template of a selfie, an affirmation, and like things of celebrating it. So then I have this whole board because it helps rewire my brain as I was creating the new habit. Now a year in, I do the selfie, but not the whole template. But it's helped with the new habit and celebrating it because then you get more of that, like all that positive good that comes from that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a high achiever. I'm an Enneagram 1. So celebrations are hard because I'm always like, oh, but there's like three more things I could
On to the
do.
next. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that she made you do that. I can like see the benefit of that, right? Immediately.
I will keep you accountable. We will
Okay.
celebrate together now that we're on the same team. Yeah. Well, another question I want to ask is in terms of resources, because that's always like a good one to hear, whether it's habits, tools, or things that have helped you to help maintain momentum during your journey.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've mentioned a couple of them already. Gardening for sure keeps me sane.
Hmm.
Um, uh, just the act of like caring for something nurturing, something watching, something grow, right? Like it's all of the analogies in real life.
Yep, absolutely.
um, I do a lot of reading. Um, and a long time ago, I realized that I have a fine arts degree, so I have a fine arts background. And I realized that most of the influences, even literature influences and things that like that, were a lot of men. And then I like really started to think about it when you think about the classics that you read in your English
Hmm.
classes, and even the music that I grew up listening to or was on the radio. Again, I grew up in the time before streaming services in the dinosaur age. So what was on the radio was what you listened to, or if your parents had a record player collection or something. So um, I realized that my influences were small, and I love to read, and I do really like music. So I challenged myself. This again is also like a decade plus now ago, to just read more that was not in the sphere of what I had been sort of trained on. So,
Hmm.
a lot of female authors, a lot of very different identities and varied experiences and expressions of those experiences. And, um, I love to read. I love getting lost in a book, getting lost in a story and like connecting with characters. And like, I love when you finish a book and you're sad, you're like, I want to know, wait, but what else happens? Right? Like,
Hmm.
that's just the best feeling, at least for me. So I think those are things that I do, that are pleasurable, but, also have an ulterior purpose. Um, I do a lot. My kids are getting older, so I have less authority over what we do together as a family. I'll put it that way. But when they were young, we did a lot of like, what are some different kinds of experiences that we can have, and like things that we can do together. And
Hmm.
we did yes days where we would put like a list together of things they wanted to do, and we would just
Oh, I love that.
out and do them, and within reason.
Of course.
There's a movie, Yes
Yeah,
Day.
I know. I was like, I think there's a movie on that. I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
haven't
so
done that
that's where we
yet.
got, I stole the idea from that movie. And so
Yeah.
like in that movie they have like a foam party and the whole house gets like covered in foam. So like our yes days were not quite quite that, but I think again just this like expanding my world, expanding their world,
Yeah.
just exposing myself to a lot of things that are different from what I know,
Hmm.
and using that as a growth tool
Yeah. Thank you.
and
Thanks for
connection.
sharing that. Well, and then as we wrap up, the last question is advice. So, like, if you have, what's your one message or mantra that you like to leave people with, especially for those who might be struggling to take that first step for transformation?
Yeah. Whew. Um, oh man, I want this to be good. This is my Enneagram 1 showing where I want to be perfect in my answer. Um, I I think, and actually, maybe this is a good answer to one of your previous questions. Early in my career, I had this thought and this idea that I had to do everything by myself. That was not because I didn't want to be a part of a team. That was because that's how I thought you were supposed to like walk through
Mm,
the
yeah,
world,
right.
like the corporate ladder, right? And not necessarily by myself, but like make sure that I figured it out is actually a better way to say it, right? So
Mm,
instead of being like, hey, Jessalin, like, tell me how you did this. I thought that I had to figure out how to do it
mm,
by myself.
yeah.
Um, and, um, and in doing that, I think in hindsight, I can see that I didn't do a good job in the beginning of my career of creating relationships. And it wasn't because I didn't want relationships. It wasn't because I didn't want people to be together. I just had this thought that to be good at your job meant that you figured everything out.
Have to have everything figured out. Yeah. Yeah.
Which like truly cannot be further from the truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so it took me a while to learn that lesson. And so I think, if I can pass that on, this idea that you don't have to know everything.
Hmm.
In fact, I would argue now, like the power of saying, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I think I have an answer, but like maybe what's yours? Like, let's talk about it is
Right.
so powerful. It's so, it opens the door to so many things. It opens the door to relationships. It
Hmm.
shows vulnerability. It shows that you are not closed off. And again, I didn't realize I was doing all of these things at the time. I thought that owning that information was good for me. I didn't
Hmm.
totally understand that it meant that I was closing people off. Again, all good intentions, right?
Yeah.
um, uh, and so I think if I could offer that piece of advice of it's really okay to not know, that doesn't
Hmm.
mean that the opposite end of the spectrum where you're just constantly asking questions and like, not trying to figure things out too, right? Like, there's just a very good balance of like, what do you learn on your own? How do you learn that versus when do you reach out to people? Because that reach out and that like relationship and that connection, I think from both from a personal perspective, but especially in the workplace is important. And I'm not sure I fully understood the importance of that relationship building
Hmm.
early on in my career. I just did not,
Right.
yeah, I didn't have anyone to model it for me.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and that's a good reminder to remind people you're not alone and
yeah,
being able to practice asking for help and coming up with those questions, still doing your homework to ask and say, here's what I tried, here's what I
right,
think,
right.
what do you think? So then
Yeah,
that's like that bridge of building that stronger connection when
yeah.
you're
I don't know is not a weakness. It is not.
hmm right. And that's even bringing growth mindset back to this is like telling yourself like I don't know yet. And then you'll figure it out along the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you don't know and you won't figure it out. And honestly, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Because you're not meant to be amazing at everything.
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
nobody is.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part B of my lesson.
Awesome. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate having you today. And it's a really great reminder that when it comes to transformation, it begins when we really embrace those challenges, figuring things out along the way. So learning from setbacks or experiences that we have, and then taking those actions to move forward, even if it's like little steps at a time. And really appreciate you joining us for Transform and Thrive. And so for everyone listening, if today's episode resonated with you, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who could benefit from this story. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jessalin.
Melissa.
Bye.